but it's weird to me that that's acceptable now. Like I've watched that happen, you know what I mean? And like mostly probably started with like shoes and stuff, you know, and weird like art
Yeah.
drops, you know, or whatever. But I don't know. Arbitrage will always be around, but I also think that I think online arbitrage is going to get tightened down a little bit, and even retail has the potential to like the sale opportunity will always be there, and the aftermarket opportunity will always be there. But stores have digital price tags now. Not all stores, but a lot of stores have digital price tags. So they doing it now because, you know, they don't have to pay someone to run around and switch the price tags anymore, which is pretty
True.
smart. They have e-ink price displays, and you know they cost them more than paper, but they save them so much time and labor. But it would be very easy for them to just like say, you know, every Kohl's in America is like, hey, we're matching Amazon's prices now.
What's up, guys? It is John from Side Hustle Experiment. Today, I have the OG Reezy Resells on the channel. We go for over 90 minutes. Great conversation. I learned a ton. We talk about how Reezy got started. I had no idea how he got started. We talk about books. We talk about the best models on Amazon right now. He gives a lot of gems. He talks about what he thinks is the biggest opportunity on Amazon, and it's definitely not OARA. Definitely check that out. I'm definitely going to start looking into it. And we just cover so much more. I started because of him. I learned so much from him, and that's kind of why I've had so much success. So definitely go show him some love. Go subscribe to his YouTube, Instagram, all that stuff. There'll be links down below. And let me know what you guys think in the comments. Today on the channel, I have Reezy Resells. This is a huge, big deal for me. He was definitely the reason why I started selling on Amazon. We both have Gary V in common. Gary V was actually the reason I got started reselling. I did the flip challenge, started flipping
Nice.
furniture locally, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, all that kind of stuff, driving around in a Jeep, picking up furniture on the side of the road people no longer wanted. Went home, and for Christmas, couldn't sell the furniture anymore. Started Googling, came across a video of Reezy Resells, scanning books in a thrift store, selling on Amazon. Took his advice and just went all in, quit my job about a year later. So I owe a ton to Reezy, and I'm super grateful for him and super grateful to have him here on the channel today.
Thanks for having me, man. What was the reason why you had to stop selling the furniture? Was it because you weren't into it anymore, or was it people weren't buying furniture over Christmas when you needed cash, or what was the deal? You were
Well, for me, I was working a full-time job. So how it really started was my boss like promised me a raise, and they kind of went back on it when the raise was supposed to come. So I was like, I need to control my own money. And I saw the Gary Vee video, and I still have furniture. Everyone needed to like get rid of it, always had it. So I started doing that. But when I went to New York, people wanted to buy the furniture, and I was in New York, and so I live in PA right now. So I
Yep,
couldn't
yep.
make the sales. And then when I was like, I'll be there in a week, they're like, no, we need it like today. So I lost out on
Right.
all these sales. I was like, I need a business that like can make sales without me being there presently. And I just started Googling like the whole like how to make money online. And sure enough,
Right. Yeah,
you were
that's
like one of the first videos.
you were actually Googling how to make money online.
Yeah, and YouTube. And I was just like looking around, and I don't know if I ever even heard about Amazon, to be honest. Or maybe it was like kind of like in my head, and like you just happened to pop up, and I always like books and reading, so I was like, selling books on Amazon. Like I buy a lot of books on
Right. So
Amazon. Like,
maybe
what is
you
this?
just like I know as a creator in this space, a lot of people are scammy, slimy, or even if they aren't, they seem like that. And I don't know if they know that they are perceived like that, you know, like they're wearing suits, you know,
Yeah.
they got their hair slicked back, like, and just to me, that doesn't seem, it's not the type of people that I would hang out with naturally. Not that I would not hang out with someone for that. It's just like nobody I hang out with looks like that, you know? And
It's
so I always try to just be myself on the thumbnail, and I feel like it stands out like pretty fairly. Do you think that was one of the reasons why?
a
Or
hundred
and then
percent. So one of the things I always thought reselling was a really cool concept, but I don't know, it just felt really weird to me. I don't know why, or it almost felt wrong, like you're buying something for low and selling it for high,
Right.
or I don't know what the deal was. But then when I saw Gary Vee at a garage sale, I'm like, this guy's a millionaire, and he's like negotiating like stuffed animals down to like 25 cents. I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna try this. And then yeah, you just see like a super normal person like in a thrift store scanning books. I didn't think you were scamming. I thought the concept overall, it just didn't make sense. The
Right.
first book that I scanned, said it was selling for $40 on Amazon. It was a normal book. And on the back of the book, it said it retailed for like 25.99. I'm like, this thing's definitely like such a
No
scam. But I'm
way.
like, I'm just gonna follow the process, like do
Yeah.
what he said, and like, just go from there, see if this works, and if not, like I'll pivot from there. Um,
Nice. Was
but
that
yeah, I
back
just
when I
started
had the
watching more
Gary
of your
V? Was that
videos, and
back when I
then
still had the Gary V intro on
yeah,
the
it was back
videos?
then.
Yeah, so that didn't hurt to convert you over. You're like,
Yeah,
wait a
not at
minute,
all. Yeah.
Gary V's talking about him? Well, all right, I gotta subscribe.
And then I think right after that, I remember I listened to the Buy Box Bandits episode preparing for this. I think I remember like that live when he called you out for selling the books.
Yeah, he was
Like it was
the Ask
shortly
Gary
after I
V live
started.
stream when he was selling his first book that he wrote. Or not his first book, I'm sorry, his third book. First book was Crush It, second book was Jab 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 Right Hook, and then the Ask Gary V book, I think. Yeah, I might have missed one, I don't know. But
You were
yeah,
definitely like the gateway drug into it because I started following you, and then trying to think, started doing the books. And then I think you interviewed Caleb Roth. Then I
yep,
started using Scout IQ, and then I just kind of went down the path as
yep.
it grew and expanded.
You remember I had to call Gary V out for a minute, but sometimes he gets shiny object syndrome actually pretty often. But remember he was going to do an event, a 2017 flip challenge of it was like the end of the year. He was going to say like, whoever made this much could come through.
Yeah,
He didn't do it.
yeah, it's actually funny. I've had so I always liked Gary Vee a ton, and I think it was when he launched Crush It. Before he was Gary Vee, but not really Gary Vee. He was like, I want to give back to the community. And so I actually interviewed him for a blog like that I had like 8 years
Before he
ago.
wrote Crush It. Wow.
Yeah, it was right around there because I think maybe I bought Crush It and he was doing it. And it was the craziest thing. I was so nervous. And it's literally kind of the same story you had about like him delaying. So I reached out to his assistant. His assistant's like, yeah, I'll like hook you up. And then I didn't hear anything. And I'm like, I know you're busy, but like, I just really want to do this interview. Like, I'm not trying to bother you, whatever. And he's like, oh yeah, I had to fire that assistant. Like, my bad.
Quit
Like,
dodging me, Gary.
yeah. And so we do that. And then right before we're supposed to like do the interview or whatever, I think we're doing it on Skype. I don't even remember. Uh, I get a text message. It's like, yo, this is Gary V. Something came up. Yeah, can we push it back like 2 hours? You really just like text me? Like it was just like insane. And then I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, like that's totally fine. And it was just crazy.
And you did it over Skype. That
Yeah,
actually reminded me that Skype existed because I forgot Skype existed. And we're
yeah,
using
no
Zoom
video
we're
either, just
using Zoom
straight
to
up.
record this interview right now. And it's very interesting to me that Zoom just dominated and they came out of nowhere. They didn't even
Yeah.
exist, or if they did exist before the pandemic, you didn't really know who they were. And they just showed up and changed the world. And Skype is gone. Like, why? Is it because it says Zoom for Business in their name? Like, what is the reason? Skype can do this. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand exactly why like what is the psychology on it? Why did everyone choose to use Zoom? And it's so interesting to me the dichotomy of it. Like, I don't know if people refer to it as like the Zoom revolution or whatever, but there's so many people that had to choose between going out of business or figuring out how to run their business online. And they're not like me and you. They're not online internet money people. They're, brick and mortar insurance sales people. And a lot of them did go out of business, family businesses, 25 plus years, brick and mortar. And now, they figured Zoom out and now they're on Zoom and they're doing the whole thing through Zoom. Now they don't even need a brick and mortar. Now
Yeah.
their clients aren't, geographically locked and they could be anywhere. And just how many people did that change? And now those people need Facebook ads to find new clients, and like so on and so on. It just blew up the economy in a whole new way. It's just super interesting to me, and like, and Skype should have been a part of that, but they're not.
Yeah, it's crazy too. Like you think about a lot of these like bigger businesses, like like Blockbuster, they should have been Netflix. I mean, like just a
Yep.
lot of this stuff that like yeah, right, like everyone's gonna close their business and everyone's like, no, we're gonna do it on Zoom.
Yeah,
Like we're not
if you're
closing.
watching this or listening to this and you know a good article or a documentary about this topic, please comment in the comment section so that me and John can read it.
Yeah.
I would love to know. I've read, obviously, like how Blockbuster failed, or there's documentaries about it,
Oh, 100%.
but Skype, I mean, Skype's not out of business, but like they're not getting the mills like Zoom is, right? So
Have you ever seen the
just,
Blockbuster documentary on Netflix?
yeah, I have actually.
That was so
Super
crazy. Like, I
interesting.
had no idea that a videotape was like $250,000, and that was part of the reason why there was a Blockbuster, so other people could watch it. Totally crazy.
Right. Yeah, because they had to pay for like a special license copy. And then they negotiated it down to different terms so that they could have, because I remember we used to go to like random video stores, and then we would go to Blockbuster, but it wasn't always like the premier Blockbuster, because I remember when it was like you'd walk into Blockbuster and then there would be like 100 copies of the single movie on the shelf. You know what I mean? That was like the later period of Blockbuster, when after they negotiated down to have like to share royalties with the production companies or whatever from the rentals.
Yeah,
And
it's
they
such
used
a
to,
crazy concept to think about today, to like go somewhere, get it, and have like 48 hours to bring it back.
yeah, I remember, because I wasn't doing too much business. I was doing like little scams and hustles as a child, but the first time you get charged with like a rental fee and you rent it for like a week or whatever it is, 3 days, but you're like, let's say you're 3 days late and they charge you for 9 days or whatever. And they're like, yeah, we could have rented it out for 3 days each day. And you're like, what? Wait a minute. Like, that's not right. You know what I mean? Like,
That's
fun little factoid. The Netflix was started in Scotts Valley, which is like 10 minutes from where I live. And the first DVD that they mailed through the post office just as a test went through the Santa Cruz post office, which is where I live. So it was like,
wow.
they had the idea, but they didn't understand really how they were going to do it. And they mailed the DVD through, and it made it through the rollers, you know what I mean? Of the post office. First class was key for it to work for them. Wouldn't have worked if they had to do packages. You know what I mean? It had to go through the rollers, and it didn't crack, and it worked. And some kids probably don't even remember. People listening to this definitely don't remember Netflix DVDs only, but it was like 2 DVDs a month, 3 DVDs a month, 5 DVDs a month. Me and my brother used to, we were on like the 5 at a time plan, and they would come and then we would just burn them all and then send them out the next day.
Nice.
We were getting, they were losing money on our Netflix subscription for sure.
Oh man. So how do you get started reselling, or kind of get involved in flipping, or whatever you want to call it?
I always like sold random stuff and hustled. I was talking about this the other day with Joe G. Davenport on his podcast, and I didn't have a good home life. And so I didn't want to go home. So like, imagine you're outside having fun in summer, but you're hungry and you have no money, and you could go home and maybe eat some food, whatever's there. But like, your parents might be fighting. You might get like, oh, you got to stay inside now for the rest of the day. And you're like, what? It's 2:00. Like, the boys are waiting for me. Like, are you kidding me? I didn't do anything. And so I would just figure out how to get money. So I would like get buy one, get one free food coupons. And we would take them and be like, hey, you're buying that sandwich at Subway. Like, here's a buy one, get one free coupon. Give me the free sandwich. You know what I mean? Like, just like that, and we would keep them like they were money. Or we would like go to an apartment complex and take a shopping cart and steal all the recyclables out of the apartment complex. So like, in a large apartment complex, they have a conjoined trash area, and not everyone recycles. You know what I mean? Like, now I put my recycling in the recycling bin, but it's too much of a hassle for me to like store it up nowadays and take it to go get the 5 cents, 10 cents, 15 cents or whatever. But back then it was a lot easier. There was more recycling places. So we would go to the apartment complex, take all like the 2 liter bottles, which were like a nickel a piece or 15 cents a piece, fill up a shopping cart, and then go push it. And, like a mile, get like $20. Then we would get sodas, and we would put trash bags in our backpack, get ice from a hotel, put sodas in there, and then walk up and down the beach selling sodas. And so I always had that mentality in me, like hustles. And my little brother and me were always on the internet trying to figure out how to make money. And we did a myriad of different things. But when my brother started doing eBay, he sold a few things, and then he started telling me about it. I'm the big brother, so he can't do anything too cool without me knowing about it, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, check this out. And he was like selling random toys that he didn't want anymore, like his Stretch Armstrong doll, or his he had a Gateway computer. That was the only computer we had. And he was like, he's super techie wizard guy. He could fix anything. He buys broken stuff to fix for fun. Like,
Wow.
he gets mad sometimes when he buys broken stuff and he plugs it in and it works, because he's like, this is not as described. I want my money back. It's pretty ridiculous.
Wow.
And he was like unscrewing parts from his computer that weren't crucial to being operated. Like he was like, I don't need speakers, I'll use headphones. So he unscrewed the speakers and then sold those on eBay to someone who needed speakers because they broke theirs. And ultimately he had his whole computer just like a circuit board screwed down to a piece of wood. And the case, he sold the case, he sold everything. My dad's a computer tech guy, so I was always around computers as a youth. So both of us. So that's kind of how I used to do like basic programming when I was like 10 years old. Going on BBS message boards, like in the very early internet days, all kinds of cool stuff, shareware, all this cool stuff. Which now I think about, I was like, man, my dad's an idiot. He could have did like so much stuff and made so much money. He was like doing computers before the computer revolution happened, and we lived in the Silicon Valley. Like, what is your problem, Pops?
Yeah, you guys could have been like the Zucks.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, there was like a million things you could have probably did. I could have just like went to some dinner parties and met the right people,
True
My dad
story.
used to work at Stanford in the Slack in the computer department. He got super lucky. But so we sold a bunch of stuff on eBay that was just like whatever was around the house that we could sell, but we weren't like looking up comps. We didn't understand pricing. We would put everything at a penny and then just watch it and just be like, yeah. Like, especially, like the last day or the last couple hours of stuff, and like, that's how we would find out how much stuff was worth based on like what it sold for basically and how many bids it got, and, my brother sold his Nintendo 64 and all the games and all everything. He was like, I'm done with Nintendo 64. I got an internet now. I want money. And so piled it all up, took a really crappy picture. Now, I don't even remember how we took the picture because digital cameras weren't really out yet. I think this was back in the days when you had to use a film camera and get a CD from the film development place and then get the photos off it like that. I'm almost certain because cell phones didn't exist yet. If they did, it was like the Michael Douglas cell phone. It wasn't like, because I remember after this time, I had the first cell phone that had a camera in it, and it wasn't back then, and we didn't have digital cameras. So yeah, I think that's how we did it. And like you could get money in the mail on eBay, checks or like cash.
Crazy.
Anyways, and so the guy that bought the Nintendo 64, his name was like, Video Games Direct or like Video Game Seller Guy or like whatever his name was. I knew he sold video games based off of his name. And so I knew he wasn't like an end user customer of our product that we sold. So I went and clicked on his name. And that's when I realized you could see what other people were selling. And then also you could click on sold and see what they sold. And you could sort it by highest to lowest. And so this was the beginning of me realizing how to do completed sale research on eBay, which oddly still to this day, I'll do that for hours. It is so fun. Like when you like grab something and you're like, what is this? I don't know. So there's like, you think you know what it might be. So you like start typing it in and then you got to subtract some keywords. And then you see a keyword on someone else's listing. They're like, oh, that's what it's called. Like tapestries. You put tapestry in there and then you start figuring it out, and like people are selling marbles. Like, what the hell? Like empty glass bottles. Like, oh my God, like it's just so fun. And so he was selling, this guy, the Nintendo guy, he was selling a controller, a game, a cable, everything separate, a console with the power cord, with the AV cord, no games. You know what I mean? One game, one controller. And so we were like, damn, he's making money off of our auction. That's why we learned what a lot was. And we learned about breaking bulk. Basically, I don't think we knew that's what it was called at that point in time. But that kind of just inspired us to think about eBay in a different way. Unfortunately, though, there's not a ton of garage sales in Kansas, which is where I was living at the time. I'm from California, but right before high school started, I got shipped off. I was in foster care and group homes a lot in my childhood. And right after middle school, I had ran away to live with my family. It was not possible because the police were already looking for me. So they my family secretly shipped me off to Kansas, where my sister lived. And that was like outside of the jurisdiction of the California government who was looking for me or whatever. And so I hid out for a while, and eventually they like approved it or whatever. But I was living with my sister in Kansas, and there's not a lot of yard sales. Like it's, like talk about yard sale season. Like in California, it's like pretty much, it might rain a little bit sometimes, but otherwise we have yard sales all year round. But in Kansas, there's only a small period. It's like summer, spring, and there's not a lot. People are, it's a cheap place to live. People don't have a lot of expendable income. They're not, that was the beginning of me starting to learn about like, okay, yard sales are better in different areas. Cause I grew up as a kid in California going to thrift stores and yard sales. Like I hated it. I just wanted new stuff.
Right.
My aunt would always take me to thrift stores and I'd be like, dang it, I just want some new stuff. I'm tired of this. They're making fun of me. You know what I mean? Like little did I know that would be my life. Right. It wasn't just a lot of stuff to sell, especially when you're not old enough to drive around and stuff. So I would go to like whatever I could go to, find maybe a random like big score in Kansas would be like a tractor part, like a hunk of metal that I'm like, what the hell is this? Like a big forged piece of metal. And I would like look it up and find out it's like a replacement part for a tractor, and it'd be worth like $80 or $150. And I'd be buying it for like $5 or $10 at a yard sale. And that was like fairly common, but it wasn't like you're finding Mario 3 everywhere. And this was back when Mario 3 was still like a $25 game or a $50 game if you had a really good copy. Now it's like probably like a $5 or a $10 game, maybe. I'm not sure. It might be going up again, right? But there just wasn't a lot of stuff. So I kind of took a break from selling on eBay as far as like, you got real excited about it, sold everything you could, and then there was no more stuff for me to buy to sell. And so kind of slowed down. Then we realized, hey, that guy was buying our stuff off eBay. Can we buy stuff off eBay and sell it back on eBay? And we're like, yeah, why didn't we think about that 3 months ago when we slowed down? So then we started buying lots of basically video game consoles and games, just like, I feel like a lot of men do that, or anybody. You just go for what you know. You know what I mean? And if you're a guy, it's probably like video games, electronics, and sports equipment. You know what I mean? Like we're pretty dumb. We don't know about a lot of stuff, right?
100%.
Had also been an avid reader since a youngster because I was always grounded. And when you're grounded, there's nothing to do. But they always let you read books for some reason. Like no matter, like any person that I've been grounded with in any scenario, foster care, group home, my parents, whatever, they're fine with you reading. And sometimes there's actually good books in the room. So I remember I read like the children's Bible, and I'm not religious, but I was like, man, that was a killer story. Like I need more. I'm addicted. And I started reading all these Star Wars books. I read like every Star Wars book I could find up until like the year 2000 when my first daughter was born. And at one point when I was looking for stuff to sell, I was like, I'll just sell those books. Like I don't need them. Like I already read all 40 of those books. What do I need these for? And I put them on eBay for a penny without even thinking about it. And they had a ton of action and sold for like 75% of the retail price. And I was buying them brand new, like the day they came out. I knew I was at the bookstore, like getting them. I knew how much they were worth, but I didn't cross my mind that used was worth anything. And they went for like a lot, 75% of the retail. And I was blown away. And so at that point, I just stored that little nugget in my head. But like I said, I didn't have like too much opportunity to to sell stuff. We were buying some lots, but it wasn't like super plentiful as far as what we were willing to risk buying stuff. And we didn't have a ton of capital. I was still living check to check. But this was like back in the day when you could still sell like burn DVDs to your friends and make money off that, or burn Dreamcast games,
Burn
or
CDs for
you know,
TV.
let me mod your Dreamcast for you, you know, let me mod your PS1 for you, like very entry level stuff. I remember we used to sell bootleg cartoon fan sets on eBay and on Yahoo auctions. A lot of people don't know about Yahoo auctions. Fan sets are like fan assembled sets of cartoons or shows that, and they're kind of somewhat permissible. They're definitely illegal because the copyright owner didn't give you permission, but there's like a niche gap because there's no product to buy. So like back in the day, if you wanted to watch the Ninja Turtles 1980s, there was nothing you could buy at the time. And so I downloaded all the episodes and the best quality I could get, and which took forever back in the day. And then learned how to author DVD menus and made a nice menu with the background and music and box art. When you lined it up, it made a picture on the side, and like had a disc printer where you could print graphics on the disc. And it was super official. Like it was dope. And so we're selling those, trading with other people who sold sets. People still do it nowadays. There's like old shows that are in black and white, like Westerns and different stuff that still aren't on DVD and are definitely still being sold on eBay. And so we were always doing, you know, various different stuff. I did some illegal hustling, and thank God I didn't really get in trouble. But that was kind of the intro. Later down the line, I started to see people using scanners in thrift stores. And that's kind of when, you know, I went down the rabbit hole of figuring out, you know, how it all worked, because I knew they were selling books because they had so many in their carts at the thrift stores, but they weren't sharing any information with me, which honestly just fueled me to research it even more. And I couldn't figure out what the app was called that they were using to scan. I knew they had some kind of PDA, you know, like it was a Dell Axum X5 or a X51 back in the day, and a barcode scanner attached to it, like compact flash style. But when you would look it up on Google, book scanner, all you find is articles about how to DIY your own book digitization system. You know, people are like renting books from the library and being like, ha, I got a copy of it. Nowadays, you get free copies of digital books from the library through the library app, right? Hoopla or whatever. You can just read them. You don't even have to go to the library anymore. And so eventually figured it out, and you know, went down the rabbit hole and learned what Amazon was, because Amazon, I think, was only out for like maybe I think it was out for much longer, but Amazon started in like what, 96 or something.
I think it was 96. I remember like going to bed, listening to sports radio, and it being like, the world's biggest bookstore is so big it can't fit in a store. That's why it's
Amazon started July 16th, 1995. And I think for a very long time, they were just pushing books. And then, but I do remember vaguely in like 2000 or 2001, maybe, my friend saying like, oh, I bought a CD off this Amazon website. And I remember being like, what the hell is Amazon? Like, this is so weird. So I didn't even know they were selling the books on Amazon. But then once I figured that out, that was the beginning of a really long journey. And back then, this was pre-YouTube, pre-iPhone. There was no gurus, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when people ask me like, how'd you figure it out? Like, who taught you? How'd you learn? And it's like, I taught myself by making every mistake possible. Right. So I think a lot of people think, you know, an expert is some kind of unfathomable, like holy, shining, godly person. But really, I think all an expert is someone who's made every single mistake within a certain niche, you know, a certain subset.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. And I learned the most from losses, I guess you could say. I call them learning lessons, not necessarily.
No lot. We don't take L's, we take lessons, right? That's
Exactly.
what Russell Brunson says. He's talking about buying courses, but I think it applies to the same way, right? When you pay attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have skin in the
100%.
game, right? So
Yeah, definitely. So I guess from there you started thrifting books, I guess.
yeah, 100% thrifting. I actually did used books almost entirely cherry picking from a route of thrift stores in 2 different states for 15 years, and
Wow.
never went into bulk until the pandemic started.
Wow, that's crazy. So what at the top of it, what were you kind of doing numbers wise? And how many, like, what did your business look like, I guess? Was it just you?
No. So at one point I had told a few of my friends, like before I started YouTubing, I told a few of my friends, I wrote a white paper. I actually should still see if I have that white paper. It was like the Bible, basically. It was one sheet and it was everything you needed to know to make a living selling used books on Amazon. And I sent it to a few friends and I was like, don't share this with anybody. Like, this is for your eyes only. Like, literally, like it was a military document. I'm serious, man. I was like I thought it was 007 back in the day. It was different days and times. It wasn't like me coming to grips with, hey, if I don't share this information, someone else will anyways.
Right.
So I might as well. That was what happened after I read Crush It. But back then it was like, I mean, I have friends that I'm friends again with now, but I didn't talk to them for a long time because they shared that paper with other people and those people shared it with other people. None of them are actually still in business, right? They all failed anyways. But
Right.
my one really good friend that I met skateboarding, and I've known him for since I was 15 or 16. He ended up having some decent success, and he made his way through college through selling used books, living on his own. And he would be like at the Goodwill bins doing his college homework, you know, like having a laptop out at the bins, which is kind of wild, you know, because it's not usually that kind of location where you would bring nice things.
Yeah,
Um,
I saw someone with one at the bins once, and I was like, wow, that's like real risky.
Yeah, like if you're listening to this or watching this and you don't know about the Goodwill Outlet or the bins as we call it, it's the type of place where like you want to make sure your wallet's in a zipped up pocket, you know, because if you drop your wallet in a bin, that's fair game. Someone else gets
Yeah,
your wallet, you
anything.
know, you're
Anything
not
in the
getting it
bin can
back.
be
Yeah,
taken like that.
exactly. You could drop a kid in there, you're never seeing it again, right? That's a quick way to get rid of a
100%.
child. No, I'm just playing. But he had got to a point where he had an opportunity to grow his business, but he didn't have the capital needed or the manpower. And so I was like, hey, let's just partner. Let's like merge our businesses together. I'll fly over and help you develop out your systems and help you grind through this project, which is going to be like 40 hours in 1 week or more than 40 hours. Like I think I flew to his location and we worked like as many hours in a day as we could from like sunup till 9 p.m. For like 12 or 14 days in a row, both of us
Wow.
processing like a very large amount of books. And that ended up being like 10 or 20 grand of sales of books. And that kind of catapulted us into being able to hire people to help us run it. So even though we were just running cherry picking and routes which was like Goodwill bins, we had 2 Goodwill bins on lock. We had employees there every day. We had someone at the warehouse, which was actually just a storage locker or my garage, processing and creating shipments all day long. And then we also would go and work routes of thrift stores in those areas. And you know how it goes. You have relations. So you
Yeah.
know when the stuff's coming out or you get to put it out, you get to go through it first, whatever. So that's how we did it. And I think at our peak, we had like 35,000 books at FBA, something like that. We were selling like an average of 300 to 350 books a day.
Jeez.
And this was a different time, a day and time. So like back then you could sell books there was no long-term storage fee yet. Not at all. No long-term storage fee. So if you know the history of it, there was no long-term storage fee. Then there was a once a year long-term storage fee, which basically means it's once every 2 years because you
Yeah.
just wait until the day after it and then you send everything in. And then it takes 2 years to actually get charged because when it comes around again, it's not 1 year.
True.
Then they wised up and then they made it biannual, which made it a 1 year storage fee. And now it's like a rolling scale, a sliding scale based on when you send it in, which is, you know, the way they should have did it from the beginning, but they're learning just like we are from their mistakes. And yeah, so we could sell books for, I think it was still before the long-term storage fee. The fees didn't go up for the first few years. And you could sell an FBA book for $4. and make $1.35 payout. So if
That's
it was a book that was
insane.
under £1, you could sell it for $4 and you would still come up above the merchant fulfilled sellers that were selling books for a penny. So they were making money off shipping, $3.99 shipping, and making a little bit off that and doing merchant fulfilled. So a penny plus $3.99 is $4, but your offer still shows up above them because you're prime and they're not, and you get the buy box and they don't. You know what I mean? And
That's
so
insane.
we initially went from, we were doing well. And then when we switched over to all FBA, it was like, wow, instead of getting, we were getting 10 to 20 times the amount of books we would get on a normal day. And we would just go every single day, no days off. You know what I mean? Buying auctions, buying it by the bag, going to library sales, and just continuously dominating. I consistently I have asthma and allergies, so I would always be like sneezing and blowing my nose because if books are dusty, so dusty, right? And your skin of your hands would be so dry and like white cracked on it because formaldehyde, they use formaldehyde in the paper and bleach and all kinds of stuff. So, you'd come over to my house and be like, what's with all the books? Like if you weren't a book friend or a business, you know what I mean? Like it looked like the Library of Congress. Like I remember, and even after we switched to all FBA, we still like had our merchant fulfilled stuff on hand. We didn't like immediately think about taking it off the shelf and converting it. That kind of we eased into it,
Yeah.
But we were in a 2-bedroom apartment upstairs with, I think, 20,000 books merchant fulfilled in the house. And like the floors are like sagging down in different areas.
Oh my God.
Wow. it was pretty wild. Right. And so along the way, we learned different stuff like, we could send other books. You could make more selling at FBA, and sometimes much more. And then, when you're at the bins and you have competitors, people who come every day, other booksellers, you don't get everything. There's other people that found your honey hole, and it's kind of like a feeding trough, kind of like a bunch of pigs trying to get their meal. And they would throw back their throwbacks and we would get everything. But then we started going through the textbooks that they would throw back. And sometimes you throw back a textbook because it's only worth $6, but it weighs 6 pounds.
Yeah.
So there's no way to make any money. And not everybody got on the FBA train right away. I don't know if they didn't read their email or what, but the FBA price for that $6 merchant fulfilled textbook would be like $28, $45. You know what I mean? And so then we started doing that. Then we realized we could buy merchant fulfilled books. Then we later realized, you learn everything as you go along. We're like, you're pricing books and you're like kind of matching the lowest price or whatever, but also still trying to maybe get higher. And so you see price walls, you see thin price walls. You're like, okay, this book's $18, but the lowest price. But then like the next 4 offers are, I don't know, $26. But then the 5th offer is $65. So what do you do when you have a little bit of money, especially when you've already sold that book? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You buy those $26 offers. Now the lowest price is $60 or whatever, and you list your $60 and you wait for the other ones to show up, and then like you learn to shop.
The biggest hack. If you see the buy box like at 60 and someone's at like 20, like buy the $25 book, get rid of it. And now
for things used things like media where people don't have a solid supply, right? They don't have they usually have one copy only. And then another thing too, this is a good tip that people can use in any form of Amazon, I guess, except for like wholesale and private label is to go through your own sales and shop your own sales, So when you have sales and you sell stuff for $20 or $50 or whatever the number is that makes sense for you, you look at it and you're like, I sold this for 54 FBA. And then you go and look and then the merchant prices are lower. Buy it. There's like nothing that's more secure than like buying a copy of a book to sell when you just sold one for $55 and you can get one for 16. You're like, that's the easiest money ever. Or to use the context menu to like highlight on your computer, highlight the title and right click and look it up on Google Shopping. Can you buy it on eBay? Can you buy it, anywhere else? Because these markets, they're not super synced up as far as prices go, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. There's so much stuff that you could probably, towards the tail end of it, especially during COVID, we got into like going through Gaylord's and kind of looking for antique books and stuff like that.
Yep.
There was a lot of stuff that you could buy on Amazon that was like really mispriced that you could flip on eBay. Just
Yeah,
with like
or
the
a
first
Libris or
edition and
something.
like all this weird stuff.
Yeah, like that's a weird tangent too, is just to understand that you can make more by selling the item on the marketplace that it should be sold on mostly. And I
Yeah.
say that because it's really dictated by the customers and what platform has attracted what customers, and eBay is not, or Amazon is not the place to sell antique, rare books. People don't usually take pictures when they list books on Amazon. You can, right? But most people don't. But guess what people want to see when they're buying a rare book? They want to see those pictures, right? And
Yeah, they
so,
want to see the copyright, what edition it is,
yep. So
damage.
eBay is the one. Just, I mean, there's so many platforms, John. Like, do you know about this platform called Cherish?
Cherish. No.
So it's an antiques platform. So it's a furniture antiques platform. It's called Cherish. Seat,
Interesting. I
like
never heard
chair,
of it.
play on words with the word chair ish. And I learned about this from an OG reseller, Vogue Squared. And basically, like, when you see that weird Art Deco lamp at the Goodwill, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You buy it and you could sell it on eBay, but you might only make like $40. But he's selling it on Cherish for like $250.
Damn. That's
Right?
crazy.
Like, if you want to buy, a weird chair, you want that authentic, Morpheus chair from the Matrix, you know what I mean? You can
Yeah.
go find that on Cherish. But you can't, you know what I mean? Because the platform is geared for that type of stuff. So like people who need that stuff, house decorators, set people, like whatever, they know where to look. You know what I mean? And if you sell it,
True.
unfortunately, on the wrong place, you're not going to be able to fetch top dollar. But the good side of that is there's arbitrage opportunities of buying from one place and selling on the other. And I think that's never going to end. There's like, what's the marketplace for selling music instruments? I forget it right now, but there's a different one. It's not, I mean, you could sell
Oh,
it on eBay, but there
I
is
know what you're talking
a
about, but I can't
marketplace
think of it.
specifically for selling instruments, and you might get top dollar on that platform, or people might sell some things that are less desirable on there that you could sell on eBay for a little more. You know what I mean?
True.
There's so much different opportunities. There's like
Yeah,
I
no,
saw one for like camping gear specifically, for people who like to do outdoor stuff.
yeah, no, there's just so much opportunity. I think just more and more will pop up. I do think there'll be like one eventually. I don't know if it's like a big thing now, but like stuff that pretty much all the platform banned, like because of certain content in books or whatever. I feel like there'll
Yep.
be like a banned item platform potentially.
Yeah, it's called the dark web, John.
Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah, true story. That's true.
Yeah, no,
So,
I feel like in the future, um, that like niching of stuff is totally a function of human psychology, right? And just like how you do stuff. It's still a product of like going to a physical place. You want camping equipment, you go to the camping store. You want music instruments, you go to the music store. And so that whole like psychology of having a place where musical instruments sell, or where camping stuff sells, or where books sell, or where whatever sells, that's a function of old style shopping. And
true.
now that more people shop online than ever, they say the pandemic escalated online shopping transition to online like, 20x or something, like 2000% or whatever, like 20 years advancement in 2 years. I do believe that eventually there will be like a one-stop shop, like onestopshop.com or whatever, right? Where you go there and you probably even do it with voice on your phone, or AI, and you're just like, hey, find me Oliver and vintage Oliver and Company mug. And then it's like, I found one for $7.99. Shall I send the picture to your device? And you like look at it and you're like, cool, want to buy it? Done. And you don't even know what website it came off of. Do you know what I
True.
mean? And then as sellers, we'll be listing through a portal that puts it everywhere, which is kind of already happening. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And price management across different platforms. So you're listing it on 5, 10, 20 platforms, and it's still making the prices go up and down. So you make more or less money depending on what platform it sells on. But once that what singularity or whatever starts, getting better, there won't be so much arbitrage opportunities online. It will still be there, but it will be less than it is now. And I think it will be more like two types. Like one, it was on deep sale right now and you got it on sale. And so as soon as the sale's over, the new marketplace price is back to where it was, or stuff that's selling above MSRP, which is usually traditionally frowned on, but things like StockX and GOAT have made it pretty acceptable. Like people now know, like it's been 2 years since the PlayStation 5 came out or longer, and you could finally maybe walk into a store and get one for retail price. Yeah. And what do you think the PlayStation 6 is going to go? You think it's going to go any better? No, it's probably going to go exactly the same. That's how the retailers like it. That's how the Sony likes it. You know what I mean? Everybody knows what's going on. People want to hate the resellers, but Sony knows what's going to happen, and they only produce a certain amount of units, and they only release them in certain batches. Like everybody knows what's going on. They're selling the shit out of it.
Yeah.
And so
and the opposite goes too. I feel like if there is no like, oh, we can't get it, then like no one really wants it.
Yeah, people don't care. So a subset, some people, you know what I mean? Some people are like, I'm never paying I don't know, what's a PS5 retail for? Is it like $500?
Yeah,
$399 or $499?
$599, somewhere in there.
Yeah, it's $399, $499, $599, one of those 99s. But either way, you can't get it for retail, and you're a person that, you don't believe in overpaying, you're not going to get it. Good. Maybe a good game comes around like Hogwarts Legacy, the new Harry Potter game, which I definitely lost sleep playing. And then you have to crack and fold and go buy it. But for the most part, people are just going to have to accept that they either got to pay $300-$400 more than the normal price to get it, or just wait 2 years and then you can get it. But it's weird to me that that's acceptable now. Like I've watched that happen, you know what I mean? And like mostly probably started with like shoes and stuff, and weird like art drops, or whatever. But I don't know. Arbitrage will always be around, but I also think that I think online arbitrage is going to get tightened down a little bit. And even retail has the potential to, like the sale opportunity will always be there and the aftermarket opportunity will always be there. But stores have digital price tags now. Not all stores, but a lot of stores have digital price tags. So they're doing it now because, they don't have to pay someone to run around and switch the price tags anymore, which is pretty smart. They have e-ink price displays, and they cost them more than paper, but it save them so much time and labor. But it would be very easy for them to just like say, every Kohl's in America is like, hey, we're matching Amazon's prices now. And they up their prices to match the lowest price of Amazon,
That'd be insane.
I mean, if people are already okay with getting stiffed, you know what I mean? So why not be okay with getting stiffed at retail?
That's true. Yeah, and it's also interesting when you say that because I feel like every year, like around November, everyone starts talking about on the news or whatever you watch that like Amazon sellers gonna raise the prices on everything, but like every year it seems like no one really cares.
Yeah, they don't. They get it. They either get it or they don't get it. You want it that bad or do you not want it? Because this is America. You can charge whatever you want for something once you've already owned it or whatever. At least as long as the brands aren't clamping down on above MSRP selling on Amazon and high pricing errors or whatever, which was obviously pushed by retailer or manufacturers, and under the guise of protecting the customers. We're really just limiting our freedom of pricing. But yeah, we're not going anywhere. And like the reality of it is no one forces anyone to buy anything. If people are willing to pay that price, then maybe they should have charged more. You know what I mean? Like here's another scenario. We're not making money on the PS5 anymore, right? Or the PS6 drops, right? And instead of making it $500, they make it $900. Just a $400, almost doubling of retail price at the retail price point. Why? Because Walmart has decided that if they're going to go for that much, they might as well sell them for that much.
Yeah,
or Sony, happen. Like why not? You know what I mean?
We saw that happen with the Stanley Cups. Like they were going for crazy. They just dropped the new cups and they're all $5 more. Where it really eats into the margin where it's like not so worth it anymore.
Do you know if it was the retailer that raised the price or if it was the manufacturer?
Both. Stanley upped it $5 and so did Target and pretty much everyone else selling them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
see, so like that's the beginning of it happening, and then you might say like, well, they need to limit your purchase. What are they going to do? Ask you for your driver's license
yeah.
at Walmart when you buy a PS6 and, keep that in the database so you can't go back to any. That seems really like a lot of work, especially when their intention is to sell them.
Yeah, exactly. I
So
definitely agree with you there. So if someone
what's
was
there? It
starting
feels like
out,
there's no real way to solve that problem. Here's the real way to solve that problem. Quit buying stuff for above aftermarket prices. If you really
true.
don't want the PS5 to be sold for, or PS6 when it comes out to be sold for almost double the price, don't buy it. Everyone wants to hate resellers, but the people they should hate is the person next to them who's buying it for above market price, because that reinforces the situation, which allows resellers to sell it for more. It's
Yeah, that
not
is
it's not like
true.
we're entitled to have these things because these companies make them for us and they love us and it's my American right to have a PS5. Like, no, it's not. You
That
don't
is,
need this crap. You know what I mean? Like, I know plenty of people still have a PS4. It works great. Get a PS4.
yeah, that is true. Yeah, it's really hard, yeah, to solve that. So if someone was getting started out today, what business model would you suggest to them?
Oh, great. I always tell people to start with used stuff. So books
Okay.
are still great. The reason being in it is because even if you don't want to sell used stuff or you have a good amount of money or whatever, I think it allows you to learn the system and make
Yeah,
a lot of mistakes up front. You're going to make more mistakes up front. So why not make them with some cheaper goods that don't matter as much? Because if you have 500 books that probably costed you $500, and if they were all crap, you could just throw them away and it would be fine. It wouldn't be the end of the world. But if you had 100 pairs of shoes, for $40 a piece, that is a $4,000 worth of shoes, which might be all the money you have.
true.
um
Yeah.
and so, and also, realistically, I think most people should still start by shopping their house. So find all of the things in your home that you have that you either don't want or no longer need, specifically starting with the stuff that you have that's sealed, and then go down the ladder and find everything and just pile it all up and make a huge pile, and then start looking it up on eBay, on Amazon. So now you're going to get to learn how to look things up on various platforms, and then start listing it and selling it. And you're going to learn the system. You're going to learn how to list stuff. You're going to learn how to title stuff, how to run ads on the platform if you have to, how to package stuff, how to do customer service. You're going to learn like 70% of everything you need to learn, which applies to any model on Amazon or any other platform. And it's not going to cost you anything. And then from there, you could go to thrift stores, yard sales. You could tell your friends, like, hey, friends and family, I'm the new Goodwill, because no one
Yeah.
really likes the Goodwill. They clean it out and send stuff to the Goodwill because it's like the free dump. But one man's trash is another person's treasure. Plus, people miss some stuff that they donate, and not everybody who's donating the stuff knows the value of the stuff they're donating because they didn't buy it. So
Yeah.
you inevitably end up with like a lot of good random stuff, and you figure it out. You get better at looking stuff up. You get to the point where you start recognizing brands and stuff like that. And then from there, you could do what a lot of people do, which is going into retail arbitrage and ultimately online arbitrage. And you don't have to like just cold turkey go out of used and go into retail arbitrage. You can do it while you're still doing used and go step by step. It really depends on what matters, what your situation is, how much money do you have, how much time do you have to put into it, and do you have a family or do you not have a family? Because if you don't have a family, you can get off work and just work until midnight, but if you
Yeah.
do have a family, you got to eat dinner, which might mean you're making dinner or helping with dinner or at least doing the dishes. And then you got to spend time with your family in the evening, board games, want to watch a movie or whatever that is. Um, and so everyone has different things pulling them in different directions. But I think it's important for people to know, most people, I feel like when they look into selling on Amazon specifically, they hear about private label, maybe wholesale, but mostly private label. And I think that's because it's just seen as like a lazy way to make money, I guess. Like, oh, have it shipped from China straight to Amazon. Don't touch anything, like you don't need a warehouse, right? Um, but the important thing about that is, yes, those can work. Be careful. There's a lot of people trying to scam you with their various courses or whatever. But if you want to quit your job because you hate your life and that's why you're looking into making money on the internet, just know that if you're looking at wholesale or private label, that's going to be like 2 years before you work up any solid income enough to quit your job. And I mean, I'd say if you're able to pull out, 50,000 a year after year 2 with wholesale or private label, you're doing really good,
Yeah,
and
agreed.
most most people in like not in the center of America, 50,000 is not really going to be enough to change your life, especially if you have kids, car payment, house payment, all of these different things. So be aware of that. It doesn't mean you can't like, do used to RA to OA and start scaling into wholesale or private label. You can definitely experiment with that. But also, I think really neglected is print on demand. I think a lot of people don't think about print on demand. I know it's not what I teach primarily, but merch on demand, which is Amazon's platform, and then just using a print on demand supplier like Printful linked up with different websites, like preferably websites that have organic traffic like Etsy, can make you a lot of money, right? Because people are searching for random shirts, like baby announcement shirt, for grandma, just promoted to grandma, just promoted to grandpa, just promoted to cousin, you know what I mean? And like, these are
Yeah.
gift shirts that people buy for other people. So we've all gotten shirts like this from people, and it's like, oh, thanks. Like, you don't throw it away, but you don't wear it out as a choice item. You wear it at night, maybe after you get out of
Yeah.
the shower.
It
You
doesn't
know what
get
I mean?
returned either, which is
Yeah, you don't return it because you didn't buy it. You know what I mean? But these business models are really great because you're not doing customer service too much, maybe on Etsy a little bit, but you don't ever have to touch a product. And the thing that a lot of people don't think about is like selling, other than like private label and wholesale, everything's a hustle, meaning like it's kind of not a real business. It's very hard to sell an RA or an OA business, and definitely like a used thrifting model. I've never even heard of anyone selling that. And so your work equates to an output. And you stop working, your output stops coming, or at least starts draining. But if you do something like print on demand, it's it's like YouTube almost, or YouTube is content on demand. You know what I mean? You make a
true.
video, it makes you money. It could run for a long time, depending on if you made an evergreen topic that is being searched again and again and again over time. So if you make a shirt for Father's Day that says Rad Dad, and there's a million different types of things dads like, and so you could make that design a million different ways, that's going to sell on Father's Day every year, but it's also going to sell whenever, to a rad
True.
dad, for a dad's birthday, for a like whatever, a new dad announcement. You know what I mean? Like, here you go,
Yeah.
honey. Here's boom, you're a dad, rad dad. Like, what? Rad dad shirt? Like, yep, we're having a baby. Like, oh my God. But like, I'm not talking about crazy graphic design. I'm talking about like stock images off of free pick with some text, or AI generated images with some text. Like, it's harder to pair the right text with the graphic than it is to get a decent graphic. You make like a
Mhm.
whimsical shirt for a kid with the unicorn. Don't use bold font that looks like it's crumbling. That's like the font for a like made it to 80 years old, like it took me
Right.
80 years to look this good, and like a picture of an engine or something. I don't know, for an 80-year-old man, or like on par for 80, and it's like a golfing shirt. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you take that same design and you change it to 70, 60, 50. You know what I mean? It might not work
Yeah.
so well for like 30 and 20, and definitely not younger than that, because, golfing is kind of a thing people get into as they get older usually. But it's important that it's like you're making these designs, which you can make anywhere. You can make them on your phone, you can make them on a computer, you can have a VA make them for very cheap, and then you can take them and run them through a filter to make them look older, vintage. Now it's a vintage design with the vintage. You know what I mean? You can
Right.
switch the colors around, switch the fonts around. You got like a nice dinosaur, like put that in a bunch of different shirts, with dinosaur, Cousin-osaurus Rex, like, and so you get a catalog of shirts, and you can sell a print on demand business. So I haven't touched my print on demand business for over 2 years, and it still makes me like $500 a month on average paid out to
Wow.
my account. And this month right now, I'm having a few shirts that are selling extremely well. I don't really understand why, because they didn't sell very well, not this well, last year. So it's not like a tentpole event type thing. I'm not really sure exactly. Um, but this month my store is done over like 700, and we're barely not even halfway through the month. So I might do
Wow.
like 1,500 this month, which is actually considerable. And to a lot of people, that's a ton of money. And I
Yeah,
know
especially
people
not to
that,
do anything for 2 years.
right. I mean, yeah, exactly. So if you're talking about like laptop business or like passive income, print on demand, I think besides selling information like courses or videos that you make, when making videos is hard. It's hard to do this, or to be creative and understand how to, a lot of the same stuff applies. SEOs, titles, search engine.
The camera's very heavy.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, I just think people really overlook print on demand. And it's like, you want to start a clothing company, you could do it for free using Printful. You could do it on Etsy. You could sell stuff. You could post your stuff on Instagram and build out a whole profile with mock-up images. And when people, buy it, then you order it from Printful and it gets sent to them. And it's all automated, linked up with the different platforms. So it's like, that's the beautiful thing about print on demand, is that you're selling it before you make it. So you haven't invested any money. There's no risk. So people buy the shirt for 20, then you send it over. It gets sent over to Printful, who makes it and ships it for $12, and you pocket $8 profit.
Wow.
And that shirt, that design that you made that took you an hour or a half hour, depending on how good you get at it, will make you more and more and more shirts. And I mean, it's so addicting. Like I'll be walking around and I'll see a bumper sticker. I saw one the other day that said, "Caution, I learned how to drive from video games." And I was like, oh, that's a good shirt. You know what I mean? So I took a picture, wrote it down. Or I'll be at Disneyland and my wife's like, "We're going to go to the bathroom, or we're going to go do this." And usually I would be bummed because now I got to just wait for them to come back. But instead I just sit down and I start taking notes of like shirts that are walking by me. You know what I mean? And you have to pay attention to the ones that aren't trademarked. Like I saw one that said on the front, like, "Jesus got my back." And then on the back, it was just Jesus on the cross. And I was like, oh, that's great. You know what I mean? Like, so many people like these shirts, and like mostly I wouldn't wear them, but like you see people wearing them. And when you see someone wearing it, that's like proof of concept. It's already sold. You know what I mean? Someone bought it, right? And so, and then you look at the designs and they're not always the best. They might literally just be like some shitty text. And then you're like, how could I make it better? Okay. You know what I mean? I could use a better font. I could get an illustrated graphic. And when you search up the "Jesus Got My Back" shirt, for example, and there's only 10 options in one page, you're like, okay, I'm going to make 20 versions of this shirt now, and I'm going to occupy half of this front page. You're going to make sales, you know what I mean? And then you get reviews, and that increases the chance of converting to a sale, and so on and so forth. But I know people that started print on demand when I started YouTube like 7 years ago that are doing 10 to 20 grand a month in payouts from print on demand. And they're not just selling on Merch on Demand, which is Amazon's platform. They're also selling on Etsy. They're also selling on Redbubble and like Spreadshirt. And there's a few other ones that are worth your time. But, it's a business just like anything else. There's software you can use to bulk upload your designs to like 10 different platforms at once. Now we can use ChatGPT to write the product titles and descriptions and the bullets. You know what I mean? No one reads that stuff anyways, except for the search engine. You see the shirt you want, it got some reviews, you buy it. You're not really reading those bullet points. You just like visually, it needs to have something there to look like. If it didn't, or if it had one sentence, it would look kind of sketch. But if it has like a couple paragraphs spaced apart, you're like, okay, this is the official deal. You know what I mean? But, and I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm like, dude, you got a warehouse and you're doing pretty good and you're at the warehouse, you could spend a few hours a day trying to learn print on demand and make graphics. And I mean, I have graphics that I've made on my phone using apps. They're just text, but you get a phrase and you put it in there and it automatically arranges it for you. And you click roll the dice to like change the design style or whatever till you like it. And you're like, cool, export as PNG. You know what I mean? And now you have a shirt design, right? So
I think that's one of the biggest opportunities then on Amazon.
Yes, and not just Amazon specifically, but on the internet in general. And it's not just like how I'm saying it. There's so much more to it. There's websites that make custom jerseys, right? So you make a listing on eBay for a custom jersey or on Etsy, and then there might not be an integration with that platform. Hopefully there is, but if there isn't, you take the orders as they come in and then manually fulfill them on the custom jersey site. You know what I mean? Because some people don't know that you can go get a custom jersey for $25 and maybe they're not that great at advertising, or maybe they're just on Etsy looking for custom jerseys and that company they're not on Etsy because they want people to go to their website, right? That's like a huge thing in marketing. And so you advertise it better, it shows up, and you take it over there. You know what I mean? You could put up a booth at a flea market and have some custom jerseys out and be like, yeah, we make custom jerseys. You buy them now and put your orders in and text us your graphics or whatever. And then you get it in 2 weeks and you're fulfilling them from a third party. You know what I mean? Like when Christmas comes around, everyone wants ugly Christmas sweaters. There is print on demand, like knitted ugly Christmas sweaters. So a lot of people will make the printed version, which looks like it's knitted. It's basically a bunch of like X's for pixels, to look like knitted.
Okay, yeah.
But you could get actual knitted ones. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't stop. Like merch on demand is not accepting new people very frequently. So like if you're listening to this, watching this, apply, but don't be surprised if you don't get in for a while. But what is accepted is Kindle, KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. And most people think about, oh, I'm just writing a book. But there's so many different things that people buy. Like it's kind of played out now, but zero content stuff, which is like a journal just full of lines with a graphic on it. And you already have, a whole library of graphics you made. So it's a unicorn journal, Amazon kind of frowns on those low zero content stuff, but you could make activity books. So it's like a unicorn activity book, and it got crossword puzzles, connect the dot, word search, all related to help the unicorn find its way through the maze. And people buy these for their kids every day to keep them busy in the car or just, for things to do at home. And there's software like, what's it called? I'm trying to think. I can't think of it right now, but there is software like, I don't know why I can't think of it right now,
like
but they have it.
Something?
And it's not called Merch Research. It's I feel this is very bad. They want to do a promo with me, so I feel really bad that I can't remember it. But anyways, the moral of the story is they have it like built in, like here's all the different types of lined paper you could use in your book, and it builds it out for you. Just select it in the software. This is graph paper. You know what I mean? This is a word search generator, crossword generator, put words inside of a shape. So it's like a heart, but it's made of words, and you put like love and inspiration and all these things, and then it arranges it to make a heart. You know what I mean? Like these are all things that can be used, and it's insane. Like you want a checklist, or you take it to the next level. It's like a fishing log book. You know what I mean? So it's basically only like 5 or 6 pages that you just keep repeating through a 40 or 60 page book. But it's like where I went fishing, what I caught, how much it weighed, what bait did I use, or anything that you could think of, right? There's even people
Probably
doing
a lot of fitness ones too.
Yeah, people doing scrapbook journals. So people are buying these books just to cut things out of them to glue into their scrapbooks. So it'll be like 50s ephemera or whatever, but it's like it'll be a larger, wider format, full color, glossy. You know what I mean? Or like flowers, and it's just flowers, or just mushrooms, or just like fairy tale wizard type shit, But then people are buying them for $20. The payout is way more on these. And the process of making that work is identifying the demand and then seeing what's there, making better versions of it, and using the right title, tags, and keywords to get it to show up, just like we make a video show up on YouTube, or it's how you make anything show up from a search engine. Title it what the autocomplete is off the search engine. That's like the basic of it, right? Using incognito browser, not your own browser, because that's subject to your own needs or whatever. But like, it's very fascinating that there's things that you could make that could keep selling again and again and again. Work once, make money many times. You know what I mean? The older I get, the more I think about stuff like that. Because like, hey, you could go across town and buy something and flip it, buy it for $1 and make $100 right now. But what if you could make a design in that 2 hours that would make you 500 over the next 2 years? You know what I mean? And then you think like that
too, paired with like the new technology of the AI and stuff like that, if you could really use that to your advantage.
Right. And you could sell a merch business. So my business makes $500 payout every month. Who knows how long it will keep making that much, but you could say like, look, it makes this much a month. What's that worth to you? You don't have to do anything. I could just sell it to you right now. And over the next 5 years, you'll make 30 grand off of it, 6,000 a month. Or a year, off of 500 a month, 6,000 a year, 5 years, 30 grand. I'll sell it to you right now for 15 grand.
Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah, that's something too that probably someone who already has a merch store or maybe as a designer could just like
exactly. And you have all those designs already. Yeah, you own the designs. You know what I mean? So you get your designs from your designers, and you get like the finished design, but you also get the Photoshop file That way you can change it if you want, you know? So I'm not paying, I might pay him to make the on par for 80 shirt, but I'm not paying him to make the 70, 60, 50, 40, because I just open it up and change one number.
Oh, right. Okay.
You
Makes
know what I
sense.
mean? Right. And there's so much stuff like, uh, I have a shirt that sells. It's like Unicorn Drinking Team. And this is like a bachelorette party shirt. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
people, they're like, they buy 20 of these shirts for all their girls when they go out to the bar and they're wearing their little princess tiaras at the bar. It's a bachelorette party. You know the deal. Like,
Yeah.
but you don't just like make one shirt and think it sells, because the reality of it is, out of the 10,000 designs I've made, which are probably only 3,000 unique designs and then just variations of it, only 1,000 have ever sold. You know what
Okay.
I mean? It's just like you get better as you go along, but you don't just make one design. When you identify a niche, you make like 10, 20.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And see what sticks. And then when it works, you're like, what can I, promoted to grandma, that sells. Okay. Promoted to abuela, you know what I mean? Promoted to nana, promoted to, gamma. Like, you're on Google trying to see like, what are regional nicknames for grandmas? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Cause yeah, that'd be a huge niche as well, just in
yeah,
general.
it's just endless. And it annoys the crap out of me when people are like, is this still worth doing? You know what I mean? Like this and that, like, it's all still worth doing, but everybody still wants to talk about like, yeah, it's got to be played out by now. For sure, it's played out by now. Like, nope, it's not. The internet is like unlimited, you know?
But I think it's like what you make of it too. Like stuff goes viral on TikTok like all the time, or like
Yeah,
you have regional stuff or stuff that
that's
happened in
the
your
other thing
life
that's
or
really crazy
whatever.
about print on demand is it's the only business model where a trend can pop up and 10 minutes later you can fulfill the trend. So like, let's
Yeah.
say, like, for example, when Trump said like coffee or whatever it was, right? I remember that. It was like
Yeah.
he tweeted like coffee but spelled it all crazy or whatever. And people were making fun of him, and that tweet has like 8 billion replies. People who are really smart made t-shirts with that. I'm talking like 5 minutes after this thing started going viral. He made a design, threw it up on merch or Etsy, and then commented, I'm just going to leave this here in the reply of Twitter. And then that got 10,000 likes and retweets, and they sold 500 shirts and made $4 off of each one, which is 2 grand. Wake up to 2 grand just because you were following the trends of what's happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's crazy.
And like, there's nothing, you know what I mean? There's nothing else where you could really capitalize on a demand so quickly other than with print on demand. Like, right after it happens, you could make a shirt. Someone says something crazy on live TV, you make a shirt, you know what I mean? Or something's just going viral or whatever. Like, I don't know. It's super interesting. And it's not just shirts, right? It's during when Trump was president, it was like a feeding trough of,
Yeah.
capitalizing not of just content off of what he was saying and doing, but products and goods too, because while you can't make stuff about other people's likeness, it's trademark and copyrighted, but civil servants are fair game. You know what I mean? So like
True.
presidents and governor, all this stuff, like, they can't stop you from doing that. So it was like Trump said something, and this guy's like, I'm just going to leave this here. And it's a mug with like Trump writing on top of a tank, like holding an American flag, and all the Trumpsters would buy the crap out of it, So
Yeah,
either
I
way,
mean, there's probably
like,
a lot of opportunity coming up for stuff like that as well.
yeah, I mean, who know, like, whatever it is, that's like, it's just very fascinating to think that you could capitalize on a demand for a new trend so quickly.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And yeah, I guess I had some other questions written down. Do you still have more time?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. What was the first reseller you kind of were following online and then you met in real life for the first time?
Oh, that's a tough question. I don't remember who the first reseller that I found on the internet was. I just remember that they were older people. One of the first OGs that I came across was Chris Green. Because he
Okay,
wrote
yeah.
he wrote the book Retail Arbitrage, right? And so when you're looking up retail arbitrage, you find his book, and then you find Chris Green. I also remember, I think maybe before him, I found Jordan Malik, Malik. I don't know if he resells
I
anymore,
haven't heard of him.
but he had a book called You See Plush Bunny, I See Money. Just like
That's a great
a
name.
little guide. He also made an extension called Clear, Cleer, and I don't know if it's even around anymore, but it was basically it embedded buttons on your pages that you would go to, like on common websites like Walmart, Amazon, eBay. And it would be like you'd be on Amazon and it'd be a one-click button to search that item on eBay completed sales, or on eBay, or on Google Shopping, or on Walmart. And it would
Wow.
populate those buttons underneath all the products. So it would just save you a little bit of time, when you were doing research, and it was like either free or cheap or something. I don't remember. And I did eventually meet Chris Green, and I was speaking. My first time speaking in Philadelphia, my first time speaking at all on stage was in Philadelphia. And after I get off stage, I get a message from Chris Green, and he was like, "Hey, you're near me. I'm doing a conference like 2 days from now. Any chance you could come to Maryland? I'll let you speak on stage. And I want you to talk about social media." Like, Chris Green is such a badass. And like back then it was my first time speaking. So I assumed everyone wants me to talk about, reselling. And then he was like, "Oh, you can talk about social media." I didn't get paid, you know what I mean? But I got a free
Right.
hotel room, and I got treated really nicely, and got like a little Amazon Alexa and the gift package, you know what I mean, for the speakers. Like, it was really cool. And so I want to say Chris Green, but I feel like that might not be the right answer. But as far as what sticks into my head, like, if you were to ask me what was the first item I resold ever on eBay, I don't remember.
Yeah,
Like,
those
I
are
know
I
like a lot of people could answer that question, but for some reason I don't remember.
That's funny. Wasn't in here, but it was your brother? Did he go into reselling, or did he just kind of like it when you guys were growing up?
No, so my brother, our parents divorced, and so my mom always had like a much more stable life, and I lived with my dad. My dad was doing drugs much longer than my mom was, and so my mom was like had a regular job and had Honey Nut Cheerios, in the pantry, had a pantry. I would be lucky if I had Malto Meal Tostitos, comes in a bag, right? Like, and so he had like a much more tame life. Like, I mean, I was doing drugs and drinking alcohol at age 12, and he probably didn't drink a drop of alcohol till he was 21, maybe at age 20. Instead, he just stayed on his computer forever and ever and ever. Like, before you had apps you could scan stuff, he was my rabbit. We called it a rabbit because you could call someone who was sitting at a computer and be like, "Hey, look this up for me. Should I go back and buy this?" You know what I mean? You'd write it all
Wow.
down, and then you'd go to the library and use the payphone and be like, "Hey, look this up for me." Like, if you have to phone a friend, this is him, because he's always on the computer. And so, like, we're both similarly intelligent. I think he's probably a little smarter than me, but he also didn't waste a lot of time socializing and getting into the bad stuff like I did. And he just focused on computers, programming, building machines. Like, he's that friend where you could take a box of your broken stuff and he'd fix it all for you and charge you whatever, or like mod all your stuff for you, or set up everything. Like, when we were kids, we set up our own Nintendo, and then it was like the entertainment centers. And like, some people I know are adults, like, can't hook up a surround sound system. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, and he ended up, I don't know how it happened or whatever, but he ended up going into the Air Force right out of high school. So he did 2 tours of duty in Kuwait, and he did technology computers. And so he was never in really danger. He was just doing computer stuff. I remember he like did really good on his marksmanship test or whatever. He got like top of class. And then he realized that just meant he had to do MP duty, which was like standing for 12 hours at a post with a gun doing nothing instead of working computers. And so the next time he tested, he missed on purpose. So then he would get a lower score so he could go back to the computer area, because he didn't want to stand around doing that stuff. And so he basically was a boy, and then did 7 years in the Air Force and came out and was a man, and didn't have time to start reselling or whatever, although he definitely resold some stuff here and there. But when he got out of the military, he got disability for various stomach issues, back problems, or whatever. And so now he gets paid for the rest of his life and lives in Kansas and doesn't have very many expenses. So he has no financial motivation to need a job or anything. And so he's literally just like has a workbench, and he's just like soldering stuff and taking it apart. Like, his last project he did was he was drinking a lot of bubbly, and he was like, "This stuff's expensive. I drink too much of it." So he built essentially a kegerator in a fridge that like infuses it into the water, and then he has like the syrup or the liquid drops or whatever. But so he has an on tap endless amount of carbonated water, but he like got a refrigerator off Craigslist, a small one, and then like put the CO2 tank in there, and then got a motor that rams the air into the CO2 tank, and like, and he learned how to do all of these things himself. But now he has a kegerator where he just on tap CO2 infinite, and then he just puts his drops in there, and like that's what he did for 2 weeks, and like, but he's like this used pump I bought off eBay, it doesn't really work quite, and identified like this cog that was broken and then 3D printed a piece to replace it. Like he's a low-key genius. But I'm sure he would be doing some kind of reselling, but because he has no financial motive, he's just doing exactly what he wants to do, which is like, he literally told me recently, he was like, do you have any broken stuff? Send it to me. Like, and I'm like, what? And he's like, whatever. He's like, the crazier it is, like he lived with me for a while, and our landlord was kind of shady. And during the winter, our heater broke, and it was a huge, like 3,500 square foot multi-level home. So it had a big HVAC unit, and the guy comes and he's like, yeah, it's broke. You guys need a whole new thing. It's going to be like 10, 15 grand, including installation. And so the landlord was kind of ducking me because he didn't want to pay 15 grand to put a new HVAC unit in. But my brother was tired of being cold. And so he gets in there with like a flashlight, and he pulls out like the one circuit board in the HVAC unit. And he's like looking at it, and he's like, I think that capacitor right there is blown, like just looking at it, which I don't even understand how you really do. And so he goes to Radio Shack and gets a capacitor for 25 cents, solders it on there, and it fucking works.
Holy smokes.
And so it was like, so we didn't pay rent that month because we're like, look, we just saved you 15 grand. We're not paying rent. Right.
That's amazing.
But it was like that's just the type of
like a massive YouTube channel. People just send him.
Yeah, you're telling me he's finally getting it to the point where he's got like a overhead camera on his desk and another camera and a microscope camera, and he's like I can solder, but it ain't pretty. You know what I mean? Like he got all the right tools and everything. So yeah, Royce is a genius, but not so much into the reselling.
Interesting. What do you, or now are you doing mostly social media, or are you still, I know you said you had merch, are you still doing like OARA kind of stuff?
No, I'm not actually reselling at all unless I'm making a video. So if I'm reselling, it's because I'm making a video, because I always make more off of the videos now that I almost have 500,000 subscribers. I make more off the videos than I do off of actually selling the item. Even if I was to make, 10,000 today, ultimately that video would definitely make me more than 10,000. And so the driving force is the videos. And like, I might, start doing RA from the Nike factory store again, or going to the Goodwill bins and wearing a GoPro and doing like some Harry Tornado style content, just because it's harder and harder for me to relate to beginners and to give them that beginner value. Like I can guide you, I can give you like logical stuff, but I'm not giving you that like Antiques Roadshow style content, which is like, enough to do reselling. And so you don't need to hear the basic stuff anymore. And so what can I give you to keep you watching? And that is, at least in my opinion, it's going to be, besides the random factoid or whatever that you didn't know about, or random hustle, is going to be like, this thing. Oh, I sold this backpack. I sold this, did you know this was worth that much? I got a used car stereo for free off Craigslist and sold it for 300 on eBay. Like different things that, because as a reseller, you only know what you know. And every little thing you learn about, you just store it in your brain somewhere. And then you see it and that part activates and you're like, yes, I remember when Reezy sold one of these. Now I know to look it up or to pick it up. And it's this weirdest thing of like, you only, like, your brain doesn't tell you everything. You get so much input, but your brain is like only giving you the stuff that it feels is necessary for you. It's like an animalistic thing, right? You see the predators and the prey, but you might not see everything else in between. So the more you know, the more you see. And it's almost to the point where you're like, would that have even been there if I didn't know about it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You feel like you manifest stuff at one point, like you just learn about something and then you walk into the thrift store and you see it. And then you have to ask yourself, like, was it there the whole time or
Yeah.
did it like just manifest itself because I learned about it or whatever? So for me, the opportunity is much greater in helping people and creating like financially and creating content, fulfillment wise, helping people, feeling like I'm making a change. And ultimately, let's just say YouTube shits the bed, I could go back to reselling. I could always resell stuff. You know what I mean? No matter what it is, even if I didn't have help from anybody, I'll figure it out. But the good part is I definitely have a lot of help from a lot of people. You know, a lot of people would say, hey, Reezy, you should use this software. Hey, Reezy, you should be doing this. You know, did you hear about these? You know, did you hear about the Stanley Cups? You know what I mean? Like, or whatever, right? So definitely just trying to focus on the greater opportunity for me and hopefully be able to buy a house in California this year.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and it's definitely it's one of the craziest things. I mean, when we were in Miami, we were all staying in the same house and like we're just all talking like game, yet we're all like competitors, but like we're also like kind of just trying to help each other out as well. It's just
Right.
really a weird dynamic in general. Like if you're
Yeah.
working with coworkers, like you're trying to kill each other to get like the next promotion, but for
Right.
us, like there's so much out there
Yeah.
that it's
In
worth
reselling
sharing.
or in content or whatever. And so I try to just remember that every time I feel like if I share this, it's going to affect my bottom line and maybe I shouldn't share it. I
Yeah.
kind of just always share that without even thinking about it. Like I just know that when I feel like that, that is also the most valuable thing for me to share. And whether or not you want to compete against me and like be my arch nemesis, you really might find yourself in a weird predicament of being like, I want to compete against this guy and he's my arch nemesis, but he's helping me so much. Like, what do
Yeah.
I do? You know what I mean? And then now suddenly you feel indebted to help me. And I'm not saying I expect that. I just know how it works. The more I help people, the more people are likely to help me, or at least help other people. You know what I mean? And so I just feel like anybody, when you feel that way, that's when how you know that that's the thing you should share. And you can do it in a way without like, make you're not going to have food on your plate next week because of you shared that. I'm not saying tell them where your honey hole is, but you can tell them how you found a honey hole and how you develop the relationship for it. And at least what I tell people is like, look, I'm not going to give you fish. I'll tell you how to fish. I'll teach you how to fish. I'll show you what lures work the best, like how to cook it up. But I'm not going to give you fish because that doesn't really help you. In fact, that just makes you lazier.
Yeah. No, I've had that both experience both ways where like I've shared a lead with someone and like they made a ton of money and then like literally just like trashed my store and like basically took everything that was in there. And then I've had people send me leads. I'm like, I know their store, but like I just don't want to go through it because like they helped me out.
Right,
Um,
exactly. So you respect each other's territory like civil
yeah,
wild animals. And like and the more someone is shares a tip with you that makes them vulnerable and then you don't screw them over, they trust you more.
yeah,
So they're going to share with you more, and like people listening or watching might not understand that there is, honor among thieves or whatever you want to call
yeah,
it. Like, it's like, hey, we're arch nemesises, and like east side of town is my Walmart, west side of town is your Walmart, but you need to be frenemies at least because if John wakes up tomorrow and he's sick, he's got the vid for like 10 days,
yeah,
he's going to call me and be like, hey, Reezy, I'm so sick I can't get out of bed for at least like 3 days, but I need you to go to my Walmarts and clear out the cupboard.
yeah,
And I'm like, cool. Well, what are you been getting lately? You know what I mean? And then I'll go and get those and maybe I'll stop by and drop off John some chicken noodle soup. You know what I mean? Or I'll
yeah,
send you a bottle of wine in the holidays or like whatever. So like you can compete against each other, but also be mutually beneficial towards each other. Because the reality is once you realize that someone you're competing against is like for real, and they're not going away, no matter how much you fart or be rude to them or whatever,
yeah,
then there's no point in being rude and continuous just waste of energy. And so then
yeah.
it's like, okay, so how do we, if you can't beat them, join them type thing. Like, how do we benefit each other? Right. And that happens in all kinds of relationships online, in IRL, etc.
Yeah. I have two more questions for you. So you've done pretty much, have you done any wholesale?
A very little. When we were doing the bulk book warehouse, we did start lining up some suppliers, and I probably made 10 or so test orders from different wholesalers, and none of those products worked out. So I just gave up.
So out of the three models, you've done RA, OA, wholesale, I guess you could say eBay. What's your favorite?
I also did private label.
And private
I
label.
failed miserably, but that's another video I'm working on. My favorite is and it's not necessarily the most profitable, but thrifting and like selling used stuff. I love the hunt for new stuff, and it's cool, and you're also like learning about history, and I'm such a nerd that when I find this thing and I realize it's worth money, I don't stop there. I want to know all about this company. So I'm like 20 or 30 minutes into like this, learning about Detroit, Red Wing boots, and why is that the capital of leather? Because that's where they were like, you know, animals coming across America. They had like the central location, on the water. Like, I'm just fascinated with learning random stuff. I love watching Jeopardy, And so I think that was always the funnest for me. Once we started doing Amazon is by far the most profitable. You just scan it, beep, 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 cha-ching, beep, 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 cha-ching. But you get excited for a $20 sale, then not excited. Then it's a $50 sale that excites you. Then it's $100, and then it's all just business. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
the more I got into Amazon, the more it became more businessy. And so much so that like once we got a warehouse and got employees, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. Like just me doing RA and OA, that's great. I love it as far as the ease, the freedom, the financial return, all of that stuff. But I am not the type of person that ever wants to grow a big business. That like, I don't want to tell people what to do. Either you're on the boat and you know what you should do, because I don't want to have to tell people what to do. I don't like, being a boss. I don't like checking to make sure if people did their work properly. Like, I'd rather do it myself. You know what I mean? And so for me, I'm always going to go towards businesses that can operate with fewer moving parts and need less oversight. And just buying and selling stuff like on a smaller scale using FBA was what I liked the most, but I started getting into reselling because I didn't want to go to a real job. So as soon as it starts feeling like a real job, and I'm like 10 hours at the warehouse when I get home every night and my dinner's cold, that's no good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I want to be able to do what I want to do. Like if I'll all of a sudden like, oh, let's go to Paris for 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like I want to go. I don't want to go, but feel guilty that I'm not showing up at the warehouse during that time period. You know what I mean? Or I remember putting books in the bathroom for the employees to read when we had the bulk warehouse. And I put in a copy of the 4-Hour Work Week, and then I pulled it back. I was like, wait a minute, they don't need to read that. Like, I don't want them to know shit about a 4-Hour Work Week. And then that felt disgenuine to my own self and like the things that I teach and I believe in. And so I could never get over that conflict. Like, how do I convince you to show up to work a job that I wouldn't want to show up and do?
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? So I struggle with all of that stuff, and like, and that has nothing to do with reselling at all. All of this is like, you need an HR department, you need a hiring manager, you need it just doesn't seem fun at that point. You know what I mean? I'd rather just be a farmer and grow my own stuff and sell it at the farmer's market.
That was probably one of the biggest mistakes I made. Was I was doing bulk out of storage units, and like it's like, oh, it's cold, it's hot. Like then I got a warehouse, and I was like, this is not what I want. I got I did everything, got the forklift, the tables, and then I was like, I have to hire people, and it was just a nightmare. And I was like, this is just not what I want at
Right.
all.
Yeah, it seems like it can be a ball and chain. It's like a whole different ball game as far as the different skill sets needed for doing those different things, right?
Yeah. And then the last question. So for me, I'm just gonna ask a question for me. So basically, I'm kind of selling on Amazon. That's kind of my main gig. YouTube is going somewhat well. I like doing Instagram. I just really like the social media more than I
Mm-hmm.
do selling on Amazon. I just feel it more fulfilling. We're starting to do a little coaching and stuff like that. What advice would you have for someone like at my stage? Like I feel like it's super hard to grow all three at the same
Right.
time. And I'm definitely leaning more towards the content. I just enjoy it more.
I mean, it's a
Um,
lot of it's the same as like, when do I quit my job to be a reseller? When it makes you enough money to do so. So if that's what you want to do, don't stop selling until you make enough off social media that it's more than that, And if you can keep that going, try to keep it going. This is like the same stuff you're telling people in a coaching call. But have you read Jab, 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 Right Hook?
Yeah.
Do that. But think of each jab as a year. So if you, I'm not saying you can't sell anything on social media. Obviously, you're doing consulting, you're making money off AdSense or whatever, but just focus hard on providing value solid for 3 years and not focusing on selling so much. You know, you still do your consultations or whatever, but just like you're not like trying to close or running ads to sell stuff or whatever. But if you put in enough value across 3 years, when you right hook in the 4th year because you came out with a course or you got guides or whatever, you can make a hard ask and no one can say, like, people, you know, even if anyone says anything, like, your followers will back you up. Like, what do you mean? Like, John is a gem to the community. He's been, you know what I mean? Like, people will, without you saying anything, they will back you up because your work for the community speaks volumes, right? So you take that with a grain of salt because I'm not the best at monetizing my audience. You know, there's other people like Miles or Warner, which are making much more money than I am off of courses, consultations, and things like that, which is definitely frustrating because a lot of those guys learn from me. And so I need to get a little bit more into that. But I do believe that, like, how people perceive me as like really authentic or like the people's champ or whatever, that comes from providing value openly for long periods of time without seeking to make a monetary transaction. Because when people perceive that you're doing something for an end goal of a monetary reason, they'll know. And then you lose all the value. So if you get a lot of value off of helping people, you get no value when the people you're helping feel like you're doing it so that you can ask for them to buy something in the long run.
Yeah,
you know
that
what
makes
I mean?
total
So
sense.
ultimately, a lot of us are not really great actors. And so it's hard to continually lie and put on that mask of like, you're not, you know, doing this to make money, when a lot of people from day one make a course or get a course ready or are working on a course and they're like, all right, we're going to start this social media thing. And then after year 1, we're going to drop the course. They know.
Yeah.
People aren't stupid.
Yeah, it's definitely been I've definitely put in like 3 years before you have to like DM and basically beg for a coaching call for like it to even happen. It's like very like, I don't know. I don't like to put it out there for whatever reason, but
Yeah, don't be shy too, because the thing is that a lot of people, the people who talk are the ones who are never going to buy anyways. They're not your true audience, right? So like, you got to be your authentic self, because like, think about it, like right now, people are canceling Mr. Beast for being a humanitarian, essentially. And it's like, when I see that or hear that, I'm just like, yeah, they were never core audience members ever. They were not real Mr. Beast fans. Like, think about like your family. They love you no matter what you do. I mean, there's some things you can do that will get you disowned, but for the most part, you know what I mean? They're going to be there for you, right? There's not a lot of mistakes you can make. They're going to make your family disown you. But some people on the internet who claim to be your followers or follow you and consume your content, you know what I mean? They're going to drop you, you know, at a hat's notice. And so don't worry about too much about what those people are saying. You know what I mean? So I know that's confusing because I kind of just said both sides of it, but you need to find like the intermediary of what works, of like, hey, like Gary Vee says 51-49 or even more, like 70-30, you know, like, hey, I'm providing way more value than what I ask for, you know. And there's ways you can monetize without seeing that you're monetized. Like Gary Vee sells a lot of stuff. He monetizes his audience pretty well, but he doesn't really openly push it all the time. Like, not so much. He might do with the V Friends or the clothing brands or whatever, but he did that thing, the 4Ds, where like daily digital deep dive, and it's like 10 grand to come to his office, you know, and they would do like 20 people at a time. He's not posting that on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. He might talk about it briefly in the middle or end of another video, but oftentimes he'll do like a 10-minute Instagram live or 20-minute, and like halfway through it or towards the end of the Instagram live, he'll mention the thing. And I'm being aware of it. And I'm like, wow, he's a genius. Was that the whole purpose of this Instagram live, to just pitch this thing at 18 minutes into a 20-minute Instagram? Because think about it. When you go live, everyone joins on and then they start falling off. And then the people that stay with it through the whole thing is generally a lower number, but those people are like the really loyal fans. Those are like maybe the super buyers, the people that are going to buy everything you put out. And so then you pitch your thing, and then the Instagram live's over and it's gone.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And
true.
so, and then no one even knows you are selling anything. And like people aren't really paying attention anyways to everything you post or whatever. So don't be scared to get what you deserve. You know what I mean? Especially when there's people knowing that know less than you and have less experience charging more. You know what I mean? There's people, and I'm saying like some of these are ultra scam artists, but they got millions in the bank off of selling less valuable information than you're scared to sell.
True.
You know?
That's a very good point. Well, this was awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Really, if it wasn't for you, I definitely would not be interviewing right now or have the life that I have, being able to quit my job. So that just means a ton to me. And yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on, man. Send me a link when this drops so I can share it out.
I definitely will. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Have a good day, bro.
Oh, you want to say where people can find you?
Yeah, sure. Just go to reezy.tv, REEZY.tv. That links to my YouTube. From there, you can find the link to my website, reezyresells.com, or just watch some videos. You'll figure it out.
All right. Cool deal. Thank you so much again. And yeah, see you guys in the next one.
Later.
Peace. Just wanted to take a quick break to let you know I launched a free Discord called the FBA Inner Circle with my good friend Joe, Amazing ASINs. Starting an Amazon business could be really tough, or if you're trying to scale, that could be just as hard. So we wanted to create a community of like-minded individuals to help sellers at all different stages of where they are at their business. We do weekly Q&A calls. You could just literally put your question in to the channel and we'll answer it on that call. And we also have how you can get ungated, a whole bunch of other stuff. So if you want to grow and scale your Amazon business, definitely check out and join the FBA Inner Circle. There will be a link down below. It's totally free. Or you can head over to sidehustleexperiment.com/FBA Inner Circle. Hope to see you guys on the inside. I want to take a quick break and ask if you could do me a quick favor. If you could like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it on your favorite social media platform. Just take a screenshot. It would mean the world to me. I'm on a mission to help other people make money selling on Amazon so they can quit their full-time job and live life on their terms. You subscribing to the channel will help you see more content like this. You liking the video will help other people see more content like this. It is a win-win for everyone, and I would just really, really appreciate it. We spend tens of hours a week on content like this. So if you could just like and subscribe or share on social media, it would really mean the world to me. Now back to the video. If you enjoyed this content, you will absolutely love the free Discord I created with amazing ASINs called the FBA Inner Circle. We do weekly coaching calls there. We answer all the questions of the people in the group. We have all the information you need to get ungated in major brands and categories. We have a list of the stores we shop at that are profitable. We have a list of stores that aren't so reseller friendly. We have discounts and trials of all the software we use. This is something we wish we had when we started. If you are interested in joining the free Discord, click the link below or head over to sidehustleexperiment.com/FBA Inner Circle. Before you go, if you could like this video, subscribe to the channel, or share this video on one of your favorite social media platforms, tag me. I would greatly appreciate it. I spend tens of hours creating content for you guys every single week, and I want to make sure when I do create something, you see it and other people in the community see it as well, so we can all help each other out. It would just really mean the world to me. It takes 1 second. I would greatly appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video.